thank you, each of you, for being here tonight. My name is Katie Christensen. I'm the Executive Director of the Northern Rockies Conservation Cooperative, who is putting this on in partnership with the Teton Raptor Center. Thank you so much, Teton Raptor Center, staff, everyone, for our venue, indispensable help to get here. And the Wonder Institute, who also generously made donations to make this possible for our speakers to be here tonight. So yes, I'm with the Northern Rockies Conservation Cooperative. Many of you know us, some of you don't. I want to tell you a little bit about us. We focus our work on the Northern Rockies, which is in our name, as you might guess. Yet we work all over the world. Our work reaches far beyond. We work all over the world. And the way I like to think about it is that this region is this really special, special place. It's a prototype of the human-wildlife relationship. And we work here, and we focus our attention here as the center of all these forces that we face at this moment in time that we're contending with that are going to determine our future. But like seeds in the wind is the metaphor I like to use. These seeds take flight, and our work ends up influencing work all over the world. I like to think of our organization as spreading seeds, seeds that kind of take their origin from this area, and through our extensive network of research associates and project partners and just folks we know, they get carried by the wind all over the world. And tonight we have speakers who are bringing their seeds here locally. So this is really special, and I hope we could all graciously accept the offerings of these moments of reflection on human-wildlife coexistence from locations both near to our greater Yellowstone region and far, far beyond it, and see what there is to learn. So a little bit more about the Northern Rockies Conservation Cooperative. We were founded in 1987 by Denise Casey and Susan Clark, both of whom are in the audience today, which is so special. These are folks who were big picture thinkers, forward lookers, conservation leaders who conceived of an organization that would serve as connective tissue among and within our communities, that we would bridge science and policy. It would be a home for independent thinking and research, and a setting for asking the bigger questions of the world. We have a few other Northern Rockies Conservation Cooperative folks in the audience I'd like to point out tonight. Our board chair, Peyton Griffin, who is amazing and just a wonderful soul. We also have Jason Wilmot, one of our former executive directors, and Jason, I'm so glad you're here. Cami Burke was our Teton Science School AmeriCorps service member. Cami, are you, maybe you're, yay, Cami. Cami's wonderful. We love the whole AmeriCorps service program, and Cami's an exceptional example of why this community is so lucky to have those folks here. And of course, we have Brock Coburn, who I'll be introducing very soon, and he's an advisory board member with us. I also want to mention, not by name because I don't know all the names, but there are so many folks in this audience who are critical contributors to human-wildlife coexistence that we see and all benefit from, and in particular around wolf recovery. I thank you all for your contributions and for being here tonight. I'm going to be introducing Brock in 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, 20 seconds. I want to begin, though, first by reading an excerpt of this book that was published by Denise and Susan in 1996. This is an example of one of the many publications that the Northern Rockies Conservation Cooperative puts out. We have a table downstairs if you'd like to leaf through some more of those. This book is called Tales of the Wolf, and I would like to read the first 2 sentences, the introduction, just see how this sits with you all. The great gray wolf that haunts the imagination of North Americans does not travel lightly. Wherever he goes, whatever he does, he is burdened with a heavy load that we have laid on him. All our images of him, our dreams, our fears, our stories. Our images of him, our dreams, our fears, our stories. And with that, I'm going to be introducing Brock, many of whom you already know. Brock Coburn, a Wilson resident here, who is, as mentioned, a technical advisor to the Northern Rockies Conservation Cooperative. Brat is a best-selling author and has worked in development and environmental conservation in the Himalaya for more than 2 decades, over the course of 5 decades. And while that sounded very impressive to me, he insisted he is most proud of his daughter, Phoebe, who is on the board of the Raptor Center, and Phoebe's new daughter, baby Eleanor. Brat, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Figure it out.
Let's straighten this out a little
I'm
bit.
sorry.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Katie. And and shout out to Amy, of course, Amy McCarthy, and also Roger. Roger spent a number of years, a number of summers in up the North Fork of the Flathead River in Montana, which is Diane Boyd's home turf. And so that was part of the connection that happened here. And yeah, thank you, Jason, for the tour yesterday. I know you've had a very warm welcome. The backstory to why we're all here, you might say, began last February when Diane Boyd called me, said she was leaving in a few days to go to Nepal and chase rhinoceros and tigers around Chitwan National Park in the southern part of Nepal. And I immediately thought, she's got to meet my old friend and colleague, Madhu Chetri. And I'd worked with Madhu for a number of years in the Annapurna Conservation Area project. And it turned out that Madhu was in Chitwan National Park when Diane showed up. And he arranged a snow leopard guide to take her up into the Annapurna area, actually behind Annapurna, to look for snow leopards and wolves, Tibetan wolves. And their intersection there, you might say, was very fortunate, just as their intersection is here, because you'll see that they are dealing with very similar, familiar challenges on 2 separate continents, and they have a lot to share. So I'll start with Diane, who will speak, and then Madhu, and then we'll save the question and answer for the end. Diane was already a legend in the late 1970s and early 80s when I traveled to the North Fork of the Flathead River. I could see that in addition to her foundational wolf research work, that she was also on the cusp of her life developing into a made-for-TV story. And it turns out, actually, the movie rights to her life story are still available. are from Hollywood. She recently more than held her own for 3 hours in an interview on the Joe Rogan show. And she put him in her place, his place. And we can send you the link to that if you want. Her book right here, A Woman Among Wolves, it's truly outstanding. I feel what I learned from this is, for instance, how parasites can affect wolf behavior. I learned how to set a wolf trap, which ain't easy. It ain't easy to catch a wolf. And I learned how you can identify different wildlife by their eye shine in the dark, which I wasn't aware of. Also, I developed a new fear of vending machines, because the chance of a vending machine falling over on you is much greater than being attacked by a wolf. Well, as Roger said, Diane's dedication and her work ethic should be an inspiration for all conservationists. We're honored, I feel, to have Diane Boyd here with us among the Boyds. Yeah, sorry about that. Diane? I'll turn it off.
So a slideshow here with when I went to Nepal and we were walking around the steamy jungles and finding just the most amazing wildlife. And then I met Madhu and he hooked me up to the Himalayas. This is where I ended up. And I spent my 70th birthday in February hiking at 14,000 feet in the Annapurna region of the Himalayas. I can't think of a more remarkable way to spend it. So this is how we connected. It was glorious. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the 45 years of wolf recovery in Montana and the rest of the western U.S. as well. So I'm going to start out with the story of how I got out here. So as you all know, the long saga of how wolves were eliminated throughout the lower 48 states. By 1930s, basically, there weren't large viable wolf populations anymore. There were hanger-oners here and there in the state, and the last of the loners were eventually killed off. Thank you. But as time went on, culture shifted, and wolves began to tiptoe down from Canada. What do I point it at? Is it on? I can manually do it.
Yeah, you may have to.
Okay, we'll just keep going. Thank you. And so wolves began to tiptoe down from Canada up into northwest Montana. And a wolf here or there would try and make its way down here, and it would end up getting shot, poisoned, run over. They were searching for a new mate and a place to call home. And we didn't have the first success in this for quite a long time. This shows the range. I've got this high-tech pointer stick here. I think it's a part of a raptor perch, I'm not sure. And the former range was olive to gray. This is the red wolf, so this is all gray wolves. The gray wolves basically existed throughout the entire lower 48 states, everywhere. And now this is where we're at as of 2019, and I will bring you up to speed, but they're recovering so fast, it's hard to keep current maps up. So the first wolf that we were able to document in the northern Rockies, the Wolf Ecology Project through the University of Montana, where I was working, we captured a wolf. We named her Kishinina, and we put a radio collar on her. She was captured just north of Glacier Park, about 10 miles. She was the only wolf radio collared outside of Minnesota. She was the only wolf known to exist, for sure, outside of Minnesota and Isle Royale in Lake Superior. Eventually that was 79, and in 1981, a three-toed black male wolf joined her, and they became a breeding pair. And as they say, the rest is history. And so these wolves, the thing I always stress to people is these wolves were not brought to Montana by humans. They weren't carried in aluminum crates. They didn't have $1 million budgets from the president. They walked down on their own, and they ran that gauntlet very cautiously to get from about Jasper to Montana, because all the wolves have been eradicated near the Canadian border. So these are wolf tracks actually going by my cabin and my ski tracks. And eventually, this Kishinina den north of the park, however, the first wolf pack denned in Glacier National Park in 1986. And this is an actual photo of the first wolf den in the western U.S. in 50 years. So that began the recolonization of wolves into Glacier Park. 1987, we named the pack the Magic Pack because it was pretty magical that these wolves indeed survived. And this is a picture we took out of the airplane. And by the time the Magic Pack came along, we had started having some dispersers, exploring nearby regions, and setting up other packs. So by 87, we were following 3 packs from one wolf in 79. A big part of my job, and if you buy the book, I think you'll be highly entertained and educated about this process of catching wolves. On my job, a big part of the job was, I was trained in Minnesota how to catch wolves. I worked for Dave Meach for years, and my job was to catch and trap wolves. And the process of trying to outsmart a wolf is, I can't think of anything more difficult in the field of biology. So I did my best, and one thing I have to show is this fun video. So I was a pretty damn good trapper, excuse my language, but I had a wolf trap set right here for 10 days. And about every third day, it would be dug out, messed with, pooped near, and I couldn't catch what was coming in. So I pulled the trap, and then I set this camera across the trail from the trap, and I got to play. I put a little bit of scent on a stick. And so this wolf is smelling orange with the bait. This is the one that's been digging my trap up for 10 days. Sniffing around, going, no metal here, but by God, look, she picks a stick up that I put the scent on. And then she rolls on it. She's doing this to me. The other thing I want to point out is this is the breeding alpha female in the back. When she rolls over, you see her teeth, her mammary, her full of milk. She's got pups she's feeding. And in a wolf pack, the alpha female is the most important character in the entire pack because her choice of den location and raising those pups and getting the other wolves to bring in food is critical to the pack survival. So, okay, enough of her showing off that she's smarter than I am. You'll read about that a lot in my book. So in those early days, I continued working right up through modern times. But in the early days, we didn't have GPS, we didn't have computers, we didn't have phones, electricity. It was pretty simple work, and we were able to study all of these things. I know you can read, so I'm not going to repeat them, but we learned all these things by actually going as the wolf goes in the winter on skis and trailing these wolves along their path. And we would locate them through the telemetry from the collars that I put on, and we would hit where they had been yesterday and then backtrack because we didn't want to alter their natural behavior by getting too close to them. So we were able to determine, and the genetics happened to be happenstance lucky because when I caught wolves, we sampled through blood and ear tags. We had genetic samples in the freezer so that, years later when genetic techniques developed, we could then do the genetics work on them. I have to stress, just like this organization in NRCC, it is built on the strength and backs of volunteers. And the volunteers, we required people to stay 3 months. They got no salary. We gave them a free cabin and they could live with the mice or kill them. And they could have all the landscape they could eat. But it was based on their work. Most every day in the winter, we waded the North Fork of the Flathead River. This is Amanda across icy water and waded into Glacier Park to where those radio signals were, and then skied on the wolf trails. And it was glorious. It was difficult, but it was glorious. The thing that people really often don't know, especially outside of Montana, is that prior to the reintroduction of wolves in 1995, which is here, we had about 75 wolves already living in Montana, 8 packs, and the wolves were recovering themselves. And then when we added the introductions in the Wyoming and Yellowstone, populations just took off and exploded. Right now we've got over 1,000 wolves alone just in Montana. It's been, I cannot think of a more successful recovery story for an endangered species. It's really an amazing story. We did our tracking with the early days with the radio collars that were VHF, very high frequency. You actually had to be where you could get the signal. So you either went up in a little Super Cub or you did it from the ground. And then later in my career, we went fancier with GPS collars and you could do satellite tracking. But this is me and my pilot and my dog. On that's the plane. We packed the runway on ski with snowmobiles and we took off on skis. So one day I was searching for a wolf that had been missing. I'm very interested in dispersal and the process of how wolves recolonize. How do they find other wolves? So we were flying north of Glacier, and I was getting really sleepy. And Dave says, "Do you hear that?" I said, "Yeah, it's really faint." We kept flying north and north, and we were up at almost 10,000 feet without oxygen. And the signal got louder and louder, and we were right over this wolf. So we spiraled down from 10,000 feet down to the ground. My golly, here was this female wolf. It was February. It's the peak of breeding season, and she's being courted and solicited by the alpha male, and there were 3 other wolves, and she had just taken over the role as an alpha female in this pack. Probably the previous one had gotten killed. I was so excited. We had a whole new pack about 50 miles north of Glacier Park. I said, "Dave, where are we?" He says, "Beats me." We didn't have a GPS in those days. So he looks at me and says, "Well, I'll fly and you read." And they went, "Okay." And he takes off. He flies really low over the train. He spotted a highway that was closed in the winter, snowed in. And he skimmed about 10 feet over the highway lanes and had me right down the exit sign so I knew where we were. And the next day I drove into Fernie, BC and bought maps and got the exact location. That was the old days. Now with satellite technology, it's so much easier. Something that we learned really important, and this was 1987, so 8 years before the wolves were introduced. Had a wolf that we had in the air for a year and a half. I love this person. She took off from Glacier Park, and 7 months later, she took off in December. 7 months later, she was shot up at Fort St. John's in July, and the guy turned the radio collar into the local game warden. It was remarkable. She went 540 miles. We have no idea. She could have gone to Alaska and back. All I know. We know she went that far, but what the significance of this event is, in 1995 and 96, when we went up in Canada to take wolves to the reintroduction, and half of them at half of them at Fort St. John's. And people who don't like wolves are claiming that these are foreign Canadian wolves. This little wolf showed us that it is one continuous population, Yukon, Yellowstone, because of her travels. And with the old collars, it was hard to document that. And if she would have gone south, she would have been more than 100 miles south of Yellowstone Park. So that's a really important piece of this puzzle for creating tolerance and acceptance in wolf recovery. You all know the story of the reintroduction, so I won't spend a lot of time, but the significant thing is that the wolves that made it on their own to Montana by walking out from Canada, fully endangered and fully protected. And one of the compromises for reintroduction is that the wolves are non-essential experimental population animals, which means that they could be killed, removed, translocated, whatever they wanted to do in order to prolong the success of the recovery. So they didn't have as much protection. So they ended up reintroducing wolves, 35 into central Idaho. In Yellowstone, originally 31, but then they added on 10 more that were native wolves from Montana on the Rocky Mountain front. And Carter Niemeyer just got out a book called The Next 10 Wolves or something. So he talks about that. Bottom line is, everywhere wolf populations grew very rapidly. Whether it was in the West or the Midwest, wolves spilled out of Minnesota to Michigan, Wisconsin, wolves across the West, Oregon, Washington, California. And now they were delisted in many of the areas. And they're managed by states now. Individual states make up the rules and laws now how to manage these wolves. Well, now comes the conflicts, because there's thousands of wolves around. And so we went from an early era of wolves being an amazing, interesting event to becoming very endemic on the landscape everywhere with lots of conflicts. So the two biggest conflicts that we face up in the northern Rockies are opposition by hunters and opposition by ranchers. So a lot of hunting community, and I'm a hunter, I've hunted deer and elk, and I'm still a bird hunter. They claim the wolves have killed all the game. So Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, our state management agency, did a moose study, and they found, it's really interesting to me, of 71 collar moose that died over 7 years in 2 different studies, found that more than half, almost 60% of those moose died from what's called health-related causes. Oh, dang it, I didn't mean to do that, sorry. I don't know why it did that. And so this is the predation here. Humans and predation. So what do you guys think might have been what's called health-related? Any ideas? Yes, somebody knows their literature. So what we found, because of climate change, the winters are less cold, and now ticks and other parasites survive winters and go on. So this little tiny thing, smaller than my little fingernail, killing these animals. And here's a moose with a very heavy tick infestation that would never make it through winter. Doesn't have any fur. Other thing is the carotid artery worm. You don't see it externally, but it clogs up their heart and arteries, and they die. And I know you guys are having a moose die off here, and I'd be really curious to learn about it, maybe in the Q&A later. So but wolves were not the cause of the moose decline. So then Fish, Wildlife, and Parks did an elk study. Multiple years, a couple of areas, same thing. They found it wasn't wolves, wasn't bears. Lions caused the majority of elk mortalities for calves and adults. Now, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks is not a real pre-wolf agency, so this data is very important. Then they did the same thing for mule deer, and they found that mountain lion was the leading predation. So it's really interesting. I was expecting it to be wolves in some of these. So I can go ahead and do talks and tell people, my God, grizzly bears knock the heck out of elk calves, black bears, winter severity kills more animals in a bad winter than all the other things combined. There's a lot of factors killing wolves. I'll get done telling a talk. And then some guy will stand up in the back and say, yeah, but the wolves are killing all the game. And so I'm like, well, how do we work through this? The science talks and the publications in the scientific literature aren't exactly doing it. So I've been pondering this for quite a while. How do you reach people? And the next people that are not enjoying wolves being there are the ranchers. So this chart shows the amount of money compensated by the Montana Livestock Loss Board, which is a state-funded agency. They pay out, the gold line is what they pay out for grizzly bears. The gray line is what they pay out for wolf killing livestock, and the black line is what they pay out for lions killing livestock. And you see what's going on with the wolves, it's turning downward. And last year, and they documented 26 confirmed cases of wolves killing livestock. 26. In Montana, we have 1.2 million cattle, and we have 185,000 sheep. 26 were confirmed. So that's like 0.00001% of the ranchers. So it's not a huge issue, but if it's your ranch, it's pretty dang important. So it's not a huge problem, but it is a problem that we have to work with. So as a result, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks created wolf killing seasons through hunting and trapping. It started in 2009. And then it posted up, and you find it kind of peaked. It's tapering off now. So although they've liberalized the killing laws, and you can kill them many more months and by many different means now, the number of wolves being killed is not increasing. There were 297 killed this year. The fact that livestock losses are going down, the number of wolves taken by a wide variety of pretty awful methods is not going up, it's going down. It says to me there are less wolves on the landscape, but we don't actually know because they're doing a census method now that it's a model, it's not actually counts. So the main cause of mortality for wolves everywhere that we've read studies on is generally humans. And even in the studies when we do in the North Fork in the early days when they were fully protected, something like 82% of the wolves were killed by humans. So we have some illegal mortality, and this is my headwaters pack. We poisoned them all, and we got 9 out of 10. We got everybody except Bill. And then we have illegal harvest as well. The only place this doesn't hold true is within the national parks. This is a slide from Yellowstone, and when they first put them in 95, and of course, typical island population, repopulation, they explode and they go up to some really high level, and then they kind of do this and they get an equilibrium. And oh, I can't touch that. Sorry. There you go, Madhu. Don't touch the screen. They taper off, and it averages about 100 wolves a year, is what the population is on December 31st every year in the park. And now it's at 138 just 4 months ago. So, excuse me, 108. So they taper off within the park because wolf populations are self-regulating. People claim we have to harvest and manage wolves because if you don't, they're going to exponentially increase forever until they eat all the cattle in the game, and then they're going to start working on babies and stuff. But the data shows otherwise, and I'm a firm believer in data. So these are the most recent estimates I have that I could get off of the different reports. And it's hard to keep up because the wolf populations are continuing to grow. So this was made before the reintroduction in Colorado. Now we've got 10 packs in California and 29 wolves in Colorado. Those are the general population numbers in the region. So wolves are doing really well when you consider back in 79 there was only 1 wolf outside of the Midwest. So then I get to thinking about, so what are we going to do to help try and keep wolves in the landscape? The scientific delivery of information isn't working. So I really believe in order to keep something in the landscape which can be negative, you have to create value. And by creating value, you create tolerance and acceptance. And I don't care if the value is economic, if you're a wolf watcher, if it's cultural, if you're an indigenous person, if you want to go out and shoot a big, huge wolf because you think it's a cool trophy. It doesn't matter to me, but if the animal, if it has a value, we're more likely to want to have it on the landscape. And I don't agree with all these values. I'm just saying that's going to be what it takes. So I thought about that after all my years of publishing many scientific papers and book chapters. And I have seen the wolf hatred and polarization increasingly grow worse in my 50-year career, because I started in Minnesota in the 70s. So I thought, well, I'm going to work on writing a book. And my goal for writing this book that Rod showed you is to, first of all, I've been there since the beginning, since one wolf came on the scene to the present population of 3,000. So I've been through the whole thing. By the way, the blue circle is my cabin. These are the wolves tiptoeing past me in the middle of the night. They're always doing that stuff. And the other thing was to be objective and not be preachy. So if you loved wolves or hated wolves or just wanted an interesting adventure story, anybody could pick this book up, to write it in language that anybody can read. It's not literature cited. It's not got footnotes. It's just a good read. And my goal really was to open minds by weaving the science through the stories. That's the reason why I wrote the book. And part of this adventure story here, I'm eating my peanut butter and jelly sandwich in a blizzard and having a ball. And then really, as I've grown from being an academic professional scientist to retirement to now writing, I am very impassioned, obviously, about wolves. I've spent my life learning about wolves.
I'm good.
And this is me. I had trapped a wolf on the trail of a road, and it had run off the road with the trap, and it hid in a culvert. So I had to drug it inside of the culvert where it had 8 feet of free chain to grab me and then pull it out. But I just want you to look at the size and the magnificence of this animal. I'm checking its teeth to make sure it can't bite me, although I've already grabbed it by the ruff and pulled it out. But these animals are magnificent and beautiful. They deserve a place on the landscape. And they deserve to have a better job done on passing out information, and good information that the public can grasp. And the message that I love what Dave Leach summed up here: the wolf is neither devil nor saint, except in the eyes of the viewer. They're just an animal out there. We put values on them. I'd like to see the value become more positive. So I wrote the book. If you buy a book downstairs in the bookstore, I'll be glad to sign it. 20% of the proceeds go to the Teton Raptor Center. I'm just going to leave you with a little parting shot of a wolf pup that I caught. I didn't want to sedate it because he's only 3 months old and 35 pounds. So I ended up using a dog catcher pole and let him. I didn't want to draw them. he's all ears and feet. Bye-bye. And off he goes. And that's the end of my tale.
Madhu Chetri was raised as a cowherd in a remote village in Assam, India. And he studied in India and Nepal, and then he went on to get his PhD from the University of Inland Norway in snow leopard genetics. And that foundational study that he did on snow leopard also has been applying to wolf genetics as well. And so Madhu was involved in the identification of the first Himalayan wolf, a Tibetan wolf, that had come into Nepal. And he'll tell you about that. I knew Madhu as a field guy, especially with the Annapurna Conservation Area, which was an innovative measure to bring conservation and protected area status to the entire greater Annapurna range. And he's really an expert as much as anything in managing humans and people, because that's what the priority in the Himalayas is you're not going to manage the snow leopards, you're not going to manage wolves, you have to manage people and how we together are going to respond to them. He has captured and radio-collared greater one-horned rhinoceros, Royal Bengal tigers, and even wild elephants. So this guy is the dude, I tell you. I mean, in fact, I can say that Madhu he's a rare find in Himalayan conservation because of his dedication to the field amid innumerable threats to the environment in that part of the world. Yeah. Well, welcome, Madhu. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much, Brock, for this great introduction. So we are not just like friends, not only friends. We met him in 2002 in Upper Musta when we are doing restoration work. Since then, we are in touch. He's guiding me all the time throughout my career. So I'm very much privileged that you arranged this. It's a good privilege to see you all here, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be talking about the snow leopard because that is my animal, I believe. I am very much fascinated with this, as well as the wolves, because when I was doing my PhD, I just took both the species. So I'll be telling about both the species about the snow leopard and wolves. So
Space bar.
Okay.
Maybe give it to me. Maybe get it to work.
So these two species, you can see the snow leopard. Actually, she is after me. It's just 5 meters. When I was checking her for 3 days, then she came to on the third day. She just spotted me. She was staring me for almost half an hour. And then she really wants that I should get out from the place, because she had a kill there. And the next one is this wolf. Is basically that was the wolf. You can also find in the Wikipedia. That was first discovered. I took the pictures of this female in 2014 from the camera traps. I was trekking with this wolf. I first spotted in 2004 when I was doing this biology survey, and I thought it was the Tibetan mastiff. So nobody knew that wolves are there in Upper Musta. So I thought this is the Tibetan mastiff, but looking at the behavior, I suspect there is something wrong with this dog. I was riding horse, and I just took out my binocular and just look at the wolf, and I just realized that golden eyes. That was really exciting. Get down from the horse, and I said, "Oh, this is find you. I'll find you, right?" She just disappeared in the clouds. So next year in 2005, 6, 7, continuously we were doing this biodiversity survey. And I was spotting her all the time. That was her landscape. And in 2014, I got the picture, this one, then I published paper with some of the Indian colleagues. Then it was recognized as an ancient wolf that exists in the Himalaya. So this is the country where you can see all these snow areas. So these are the small country, just like the land of the size of the Florida, of the same latitude, very small. And on the south we have India, big giants, and even in the north we have Tibet, very small sandwich between these two countries. And you have seen the Mount Nepal that I have written there, where I met Diane in last March. So I told her, we met her, and I said to her that you really want to see the wolves, then you have to go to the north, just like in the area where you can see the snow. Right? That is in Mana. She traveled to Mana. She was able to find some snow leopards, I think, is perhaps marking there. So this is the country map where we have 10 protected areas and 6 conservation areas and 1 hunting reserve as well. And you can see this northern border, Tibet, south, we have India. And these are the 3 landscapes where I was working with wolves and snow leopard and other species as well as the local communities. So this is the interesting, the management system is very different compared to US. So in this national park, we have army. The army has been used to be mobilized for the protection of rhino and tigers and even other species. But in the 3 conservation areas, those are the people. We don't have army, we don't mobilize army, right? It's by the people. they are managing with the people. We have to work more with the local people. So I work with this on the tree landscape. We're still working with wolves and snow leopards and other prey. So this is the typical landscape of Annapurna area, Trans-Himalaya. You can see these pictures. If you see the if you want to see the mountain, you have to look towards the south from here. So basically, the mountain in Nepal is towards the north. So this just behind in Himalayas, Annapurna range, you have to fly to reach here. So this is snow leopard that same snow leopard that I was monitoring. Basically, they follow the ridge line. You can see they like this mark the ridge line and follow the ridge. So if you really want to see this snow leopard, then you have to be in the opposite side of the cliff and just watch for the skin. So these are the prey of the species, the blue sheep. So it was wrongly said as a blue sheep. These are not the sheep actually. These are the goat. But these are the most preferable prey species of the snow leopard. So there is a snow leopard somewhere here in these slides. So we can find out. So that means that you are able to, track the snow leopard in the Himalayas. So it's just you can try. Somewhere in the landscape, they are so mimic to the environment, So one has to be observed very carefully. Then once you identify them, then you can monitor or you can even watch them throughout the day. Finding them is so difficult. And that's why some people, sometimes they say that it's a ghost of the mountain. So we don't believe that. We say it's a queen of the mountain. Right? Anyone? So these guys are stupid, They are just looking this side. There's a dead John behind them. Just with one jump, he can grab the prey. So they just hunt like that because sometimes you can see maybe in the YouTube videos, you can say there are some videos that they are just running with this, falling down from a big cliff with now we call it now. But they are so flexible and sometimes we never found any dead snow leopard that falls from the cliffs like that. There is no record. So recently, after 40 years of doing research and investigation, doing lots of camera traps work, we came out recently. The number in the country is 397. This was just released in April 10, 2025. So we work closely with the government. This collection is we collect the information from all these organizations working with snow leopard, individual researchers, government officials. And we sit together, a task force was formed, then we come up with this number. And you can see this, they have a broad bows. Yeah? The bows are very good, very big, so it's easy to just climb the cliff. So while climbing, you can see the long tail, bigger than the longer than the body size, which helps them to climb while not putting the cliff. And also these pictures also have some different information. Sometimes they are now coming down to even the forest area. There is no prey in the above tree lines. They also used to descend down to the forest area. So this is how we do this with the camera traps work. So we generally focus on the forehead to get nice pictures from the forehead, and basically the tail. So at the initial stage, we tried to have the pictures from both flanks, just like for the tigers. We use these both flanks pictures to identify the animals. But for the snow leopard, it's very tricky. Sometimes there is no place even to set up the cameras in the cliff, right? So single cameras can work very well. So to figure it out, it took several years. And now we are following this. And with this, it's not only about this. This is we figure it out from this manually, screening pictures. So sometimes you have so many false images in your camera. 5,000 pictures are there. That's all false images, and there is only one leopard somewhere in the middle. So you have to do it manually. Whole day you are checking, right? We did like that. But recently now we are moving forward using this AI technology, tools, so they can identify the species. In the next step, where we are using testing the AI technology. So this is the wolves, three species of this gray wolves are found in the subcontinent or South Asia. The lower one is this Himalayan wolf that was first reported from this country. You can see this paper was there. So they are a little bit smaller compared to other wolves, and but they're a bit bigger than this. For example, Indian wolves. Indian wolves are a bit much smaller than this. So this is they were distinct from the other species in the sense that they have the haplotype, full haplotype is quite distinct. And from the literature, we find out that they were, evolved separately before 1.5 million years ago. Small population ranging from Nepal to Tibet and to Ladakh, Jammu and Kashmir. So still, exist here. So currently, it was interesting with this finding in 2016. Then we started exploring the other areas throughout the country. Some areas they are now, recolonizing. They are coming back. So when we talk with the local peoples, in the 50s, 60s, in some of the 40 areas, there were poisons. They were disseminated from the area. But with conservation efforts, they are coming back. They are coming back. Again, challenges are also coming. So I was just want to share about diet and prey selection, what they eat actually. So this is from the genotype scat means those scats were verified genetically. This is small leopard scat, this is wolf scat. Then after that we checked what they prepared. So we found that for the snow leopard, we found that more than around 57% of the diet is from this blue sheep and Himalayan tar. So those are the cliff dwellers animals. So they prefer the animals who are associated with the cliffs. The snow leopard are also, associated with the cliffs. But if you see the other parts, the small mammals, you can see the Persian and the plain dwelling animals. We have yang, middle one is the typical gazelle and argali. So sheep, argali sheep. Those are the plain dwellers, just like in the Tibetan plateau, they were crossed with the borders. So they sometimes they had a chance to kill those Persian. But looking at the livestock part, it's around 27%. A huge chunk of the diet comes from the livestock, right? So if we just, let's say, protect livestock from killing from snow leopard killing, then I think again there's a problems in the ecosystem, right? There's some balances on the way, but how to continue this approach is challenging. So if you see the Himalayan wolf diet, you can see that mostly they go for small mammals and also these plain dwellings, so they chase the prey and they hunt down even the young, they can hunt down they are aggressive. Even we found that they can bring down the big, this horse, right? And also sometimes the yak, mostly the juveniles are attacked by the wolves. So, and very less to cliff dwellings. Most of the small kids of this tower, they sometimes. We also look at the patterns of the conflict, how it is across the landscape, which is around 5,000 square kilometers. So you can see this. The green one is this. They have this in the high altitude. They have divided this. Their parcel lands in the different seasons: summer, winter, autumn, spring, like that. So and people follow their traditional system. So green one is this summer pastures, and this orange is the winter pastures, and pink one is the year round. So mostly used by the cows and these cows. Look at it go. And this dot circle is this survey village. So we surveyed 85 villages across the landscape and talked with the farmers, and of course verify the losses. What we found that is overall losses to carnivores, all carnivores that exist in the region. It's not only wolves or snow leopard, but it's brown bear. We also have golden jackal. We have also this red fox, right? Sometimes even red fox. Just one question of the total livestock holding. Total livestock holding in that landscape is around 120,000. And if you see in terms of species, snow leopard is 62%, wolves is very little, right? 16.8%. That's from the other predators. But perceptions are negative, right? So interesting. When we do some model and check what are the actual parameters and this affecting the perception, we found that males are normal and positive. The female are more negative towards. Because in the mountains, in the Himalayas, all the resources being managed by female, male mostly go for herding, and taking care of the household activities by all the business and other things. Females are very, negative towards wolves as well as the small leopard. But we also found the interesting thing is we also look at the occupation and this, other business. If some farmers have occupation as well as some business, e-shops or tourism-related business, so that for that family is very positive towards conserving snow leopard and other predators. Right? Also, literacy. If the person is literate, they are positive. If there is no, because it's so, the landscape, you can see we just took the variable as read and write, whether you can read or you can write and like that. So that is the classification. So being illiterate means negative. So it was like that. So very, very interesting result. So as similar, just like maybe here, we have some problems of literary killings, mostly along this border area in the northern part. And this prey decline and habitat degradation. And the degradation of this, even declining of these rotational grading practices. So they don't follow in some areas. Surveillances, some parameters, and the most important part in terms of all this, even numbers about limited research. It came to highlight only after 2016. Now some work is ongoing in the western part of the landscape. Some students are doing very interested. The problems with this livestock depredation is mainly in the Himalayas, people used to catch these livestock in the rangeland, pasture land. And in the night, they put the coral and like this. You can see more coral here. This is open coral that predators can jump in and go inside. And the lower one is a winter coral, and sometimes even they tie the yak, calf like this, and just leave it, right? Which is very, dangerous from the wolf predation. It was like that. So these are some of the challenges people are practicing. One most, so if the coral, you have seen the coral, if it is open, leopard get inside the coral. Sometimes incidences happen like this. So these are the incidences that occur when I was doing my research in 2014. One farmer he lost all 104 lots. If these cases happen, if people are positive also, one case will lead whole landscape. It just spread like a fire. Right? This is the most challenging part. And of course, sometimes if some leopard get trapped inside corals, people sometimes kill, right? And also it goes to trap, right? So these are the two cases that was. Recently, we don't have big cases of. So this is the case here. I can play this video. You can see that there's 50 kills, made by this snow leopard. It enters inside the coral and all the animals there and just escape. Right? So this is in the western part of Nepal. Disturbances I am talking, this is, does anybody know what is this actually? This is very interesting. This is mushroom called caterpillar fungus. It's also known very popular as years ago. You can also just check in eBay or Amazon, you can find this. One fungus costs around $25, right? This I got recently in the Beijing supermarket. Highly valuable that was basically found in the Himalayas. Are collecting this and selling to the local vendors, and it was exported to China, mostly big market in China. In China, they just sell it with high decoration and polish like that. The problem with this is people used to go to the high passes. They usually grow above 4,000 meters, which is prime habitat of wolves, other predators, small leopard, and other. So this, you can see this 50,000 people at one time enter inside the passes during this. It starts from May to July, sometimes in some areas July. Open for 30 days. And this also offers a good opportunity for the farmers to earn some money. But on the negative side is some disturbances, pollution, like that. There's a small clip that I can show you. Here's the entry date in the Dolpo region where people, around 20,000 people, with all their gears and everything, food, logistics, everything, they move to the passes. And it's not easy to find this mushroom. So they just kneel down and just search it manually. Some even die with high altitude sickness like that. But still, there's a big money in there. It supported local economy in the region. So what we are doing is we are just minimizing the environmental impact, but we cannot stop doing this. So how coexistence is possible is only from participation from the local communities. So we work with the local communities, we support them with their livelihood activities. We support for a small infrastructure development for drinking water. We support for homestay, ESOP lodges, to just use as an entrepreneurship, to improve the business. Likewise, so if we do like that with the work with the community, then they're supporting because they come to work to support or protection. We have in Annapurna that I have shown in Mark, mostly around lots of volunteers who are contributing for this protection. So other things what we're doing is to support this predator-proof corals. So you can see on this gang coral, we call it this one is a gang coral. This one locally made, above the roof we have this mesh wire, which is completely protected with door. Above door is a community coral. This is also community coral. This is a cave actually. It's a 5-story cave. People used to use in most time. So whole village was there, including the monastery was there, right? During the 8th century. Now they moved to the other places. This is the individual corals for the nomadic family. And like that, we support them so that we make predator proof so that the small leopard cannot enter inside the coral. And the contribution is from which we ask them, okay, you support 40% as labor cost, we will give you 60%, right? We transfer all the material and we also design the products. Like that, we are working in the landscape. This is a solar active fence, and I'm very much grateful to Broad, who brought this in 2005 in Muslim. We tested with this nomadic people, and it was very effectively to deter the wolves. So it's this very small, portable, in boxes it can come. It just get this folded poles. It's very nomadic people, they do rotational grazing. So they move from one place to another and just fix it in the land and just grass it. So this is very effective in the area we found in the lake. Apart from that, we also have the government relief programs. If somebody lost any livestock, so they used to get relief. Some process is there. So annually, the government support around $4 million throughout the country in terms of livestock losses, even life losses from tigers and elephants, right? Sometimes it happens. So also, the most important critical part is the awareness and communication. In our working area, you can see the kids. We have grade 6, 7, and 8 this curriculum for the school children to give awareness. We have around 200 schools within our working area where we give children this class about the conservation. We also support the best students during scholarship, encourage them to participate. We have around 600 girls students where the organization is providing scholarship. Apart from this, very interesting is the non-violence area. So this is one of the conservation area where we are working. People they don't kill animals for the purpose of meat, and they say it's a non-violence area. Even the outsiders, as a tourist, if you trek in that area, you'll not get meat there. You have to carry dry meat from the capital city, or you can get eggs there, right? So they don't kill animals or sacrifice for the purpose of meat, and they don't harm wildlife. So those types of areas there are plenty, and we encourage those traditional practices, support them, to other means, and try to keep intact the integrity of the cultures. That helps to protect biodiversity as well as the environment. So I belong to the organization called National Trust for Nature Conservation, that's affiliated with this institution. And this is the institution. It was formed by the previous king when it was known as King Minor Trust for Nature Conservation. After democracy, it was changed to National Trust for Nature Conservation. It has its own act and directives. We are supporting the government in the conservation activities. So we have the good thing with this organization is we can write projects, we can bring funds. The government they don't do that, right? They don't have the authority to do that. We can bring funds from the outside also. And the government entrusted us to manage the conservation areas. So we have our own act and regulation and directives to manage those. You can see the upper area on the Madhu Chetri Center, we manage those. And we also manage the only central zoo, Kathmandu. Apart from that, we have several offices in lowland parks associated with the government. We rescue wildlife, the problem animals. Every year we rescue around 1,000 animals. Problem tigers, many tigers, elephants, rhinos, they are coming out. So we have a wildlife rescue team across the country, even if we go in home. These are the areas where we work. It covers almost 33% of the total project area. So which covers in Nepal, the whole country is around 24% is protected. After that, the person is organizing the dialogue. So these are some of our partners supporting us. Also, we have academic institutions, we have US Fish and Wildlife Services, Forest Service. So many very good, very big with this. First tiger study was in this study. So thank you very much. I have a very small thank you video to show you. Yeah, this is taken by very much. This is a very good question and very relevant. Yeah, with this perception that I have mentioned, right? So is people, we are not supporting the individuals. Let's say in the village there's 20 people living there, and all the 20 they have to go and saved in that in their house. So we support all the 20. We don't support one or two. So we had the experience that if you support one or two individuals, that become biased. It's difficult, right? So we just started doing clustering of creative group quarrel implementation. That changed completely. So if you will visit the village, you are just like big, you will get honored. Yeah. So they just welcome you. Yeah. Hardly and with food, everything, even they don't, want to take any money from it like that. Very great honor. So whole perception is changed, but the problem is a little bit the herding system is been decreased now because people they don't want to stay in the harsh environment. All they want to move down or to go abroad.
Other question?
There's also a masculine crowd. Why would there be
Very good question because people, everybody they are wondering. Sometimes you can also see pictures that was the stick are piled up and saying that it's done by snowmaker. You have seen the pictures, even in my pictures, right? So they are just lying up like that. So when a snow leopard get inside the coral, sometimes they get trapped also. Nowadays people started releasing it. Right? We have a very recent case from this time. It was trapped inside the coral. They informed us, and we went together and we released them. So that was a positive impression. The problem with is once they get trapped inside the corals, they also feel unsafe because these goats they are making annoying sound. So just we just go to each and every individual and just everyone. So recently, it was in April. There's a mass killing. It was in part of there's 8 individuals only. We found that all these 7 were killed. Rest escaped because they have inner chamber. They hide inside the goats, and he ate half of one goat and he escaped. So it's different in the different situations. But mostly, the snow leopard, they are also, they sometimes the pile up is they were at the corner, just waiting, and sometimes they kill at the corner all in. That looks like a pile up thing. And even the farmers, when we talk with the farmers, we also found that some animals just simply die. Maybe they are so scared or hardcore. We have seen that also. In case of seals.
Okay, another question maybe for Diane.
The question was, is the acceptance of wolves in Minnesota different from here? I can say yes. I grew up in Minnesota, and because the wolves were never extirpated, they never were gone. People will learn to adjust their management practices to basically dealing with wolves all the time. But when our ancestors, European ancestors, settled the West, manifest destiny said we had the ability to wipe out every predator, every can clean out the West so it was empty. The wolves were gone for a while. So when they came back, it was more difficult for people to coexist. Does that answer your question? The question was, do Minnesota still accept? Is it still that way. Wolves are controversial everywhere, and because the numbers of wolves have so exceeded recovery goals in the Midwest, and there's been so much litigation, you're not allowed to delist or downlist. So there's a lot more animosity because of the lawsuits, whereas wolves are doing really well in the Midwest. So I would say it's still worse in the West. And about the lady who asked about the multiple killing, mass killings, wolves in Minnesota will get into turkey farms and slaughter hundreds and hundreds of turkeys in a matter of an hour or two because they can. They're trapped. And it's probably similar. Grizzly bears will do the same thing. So it's not unusual, unfortunately. Can I answer your question?
Okay, more? Yeah?
So the question was basically, if wolves are so difficult to trap, how come they're getting 80 to 120 by traps every year? Because there's thousands, lots and lots of people trying to kill them. I was just one person, and I wasn't trying to kill them. But they can nowadays, you can kill them with traps, you can kill them with snares, you can shoot them at night, you can shoot them in the dark. In Idaho and Montana and Wyoming laws are pretty. They're not even in some areas. A lot of the states are considered a farming. There's just more effort to kill wolves now, and people are getting better at learning how to trap. Some individuals devote their summer and fall to learning where wolves are, and will find them sites so that when season opens, there's predator hunters. That's their main calling in life. They call them electronic calls and shoot them. They can shoot multiple wolves, but trapping, they're still difficult, and they're getting more difficult to trap. So because they're
Question there?
you need to buy my book. So the question was, if there were 75 wolves in Montana before the wolves were introduced, was reintroduction necessary? I talk about that at length in document. Say, based on science, I don't believe it was necessary. And my colleagues know, we have really professional debates about this. But wolves in Europe have recovered from a couple of thousand to 21,000 wolves now in Italy, all over Western Europe, all of Western Europe, and not one of them was reintroduced. Wolves have made it to Oregon, Washington, California, Colorado, without reintroductions. Now they've reintroduced wolves in Colorado on top of native wolves that were already coming in and introduced. So read my book and contact me. We'll talk about it over coffee. But I would say no, it wasn't necessary. Also in my book, I document how wolves were making it to Yellowstone. A couple of absolutely documented prior to making it. So,
Peter?
Yeah, but there was an old oh, but different winter. Doesn't mean that our world is that. So, those rules
that was a long question, but I'll try and summarize it talking about the movie Death of a Legend. I think it was made in 1976, something like that. I remember watching it. It was the first wolf outreach program based on science that didn't demonize wolves. It documented their ecology and how they balanced or didn't balance populations. But the Isle Royal situation he's talking about is a closed ecosystem on Moose had been there, they made it over there. Wolves walked across the ice from Minnesota. And there was never any more genetic exchange of wolves coming and going, but the populations built up. And it's been a fascinating study. If you want to Google Ohio Royal Ecology, Dave Beach got it. So wolves and moose are the only predator-prey species on it. It's a two-species system, foxes and foxes. And as wolves kill off a lot of moose, the moose numbers drop, and then the wolves push it over the top because they're weak. Then the vegetation goes back, and wolves starve off because there aren't enough moose. Then moose populations go up. And it does this continuously. What the new part of that story is that because there's not involvement in new genetic material coming on the island, the wolves basically died out on the island or left. Reintroducing. So they're trying to augment populations. They didn't fit with climate change, the ice would freeze over again. They wouldn't get in the way of the wolves. They were down after they've been inbred for so long, they did genetics on them, and the wolves that were left were as close as a brother sister. Actually, there was only one father and daughter left. And at one point, they were 50-something. We simply wouldn't reproduce. They don't have to do that. So they had to do a certain point.
Okay, any more?
I wrote about that a lot in my book. And I did describe it, and there's a whole chapter about this evolution of dogs from wolves and our relationship and how it changed when we began domesticating wild animals into livestock. And wolves became competition, and we used dogs to protect our livestock from the wolves. It's really convoluted. But I am amazed because even some of these predator hunters that live to kill predator wolves, they have dogs that they really love. I don't get it. I'm a dog person. I like dogs. Do you have a different opinion from Nepal?
I think in the Himalayas the situation is different because they have some they tie up everything with cultural values, right? For the snow leopard, they consider as I mentioned as a queen of the mountain. So if there is no snowfall anytime within the time, sowing seeds, and they go to the mountain, wait for the snow leopard to come and roar in the area. So then they said if they do that, they will get the snowfall timely, even the rains timely. So that types of beliefs, very strong connection with the snow leopard, but there is no such evidences in terms of wolves. They are always considered as very cruel and brutal, right? Even sometimes if they kill, attack, for example, horse are big enough, so they just pull all the intestine from the backside, and half and the dead animals they encounter the hunters. So that is quite scary to them, right? If that happens, then I saw that when I was doing work in Mustang, I found that one cow, he escaped from the wolf attack without muzzles, no mouth, bleeding. That cow entered the village, and the whole villagers, they are watching. So that is very scary. So there's like that type of incidences makes them very helpful. That is the region in the Himalayas.
And I would just add, I think there's a different relationship in how people feel about their dogs in the Nepalese culture versus we treat our dogs like children here. It's a different. Do you agree with that? No, you don't agree with that. Okay.
Well, we have a festival, dog festival, why we pray them, we put garland on them, especially for the dog. So it's very high in culture actually. So maybe Diane saw so many street dog in Kathmandu. So that's why she is relating. It's not true actually. Yeah, many people it's coming out. Now we have started some kind of clubs also. People are also taking care of dogs. Women who has more than 1,000 dogs collecting on the street, and she was taking care of. So people are different, but in our culture, we pray God.
I need to come back again.
A question here?
So if we hadn't reintroduced wolves as an experimental population and came back on the road, would they
The question was, if wolves hadn't been reintroduced and they were come on their own fully endangered, would they still have full protection? Yes, they would have. They would not have been managed and translocated depredations until they met the ESA recovery goals. When they meet their goals, then they be downlisted from endangered, threatened, and then they be downlisted, threatened, so not protected and managed by the state. But they'd have to reach the goals first, which would happen. It happened pretty quickly. Good question. We don't know, and we can't go back. So we don't know how long it would take for wolves to have gotten to Yellowstone and be populated. But looking at that little female who went up through 500 miles, my guess would be that we would be about the same number of wolves without reintroduction. Because the population picked up so fast. I mean, it's an island population. Had to get two that survived and bred that made it. Montana was wolfless, but two managed to run it. We don't know.
how quickly they
Yeah.
Michigan?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Christine?
So when you put that slide
All 100%. It's just like your fingerprints. Yeah, it's just like fingerprints. Yes, 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 yes. Even I can recognize first areas. Let's say if it's not a police. Yes, also. I can confirm. That almost get expertise on that aspect. Checking all the rows. Even what I do, I collected the scat sample for my DNA. Finding scat is so difficult, and you have to find the spot where they use this tiny mark. Sometimes have this scat there, but also equally you can also hide some that you can also find the scat left by the other, fox, etc. Also play in the same territory, right? To just make that you collect the right scat, I used to have these vials, small vials, that contain small urine. And I used to smell, right? Very soothing smell for me. Well, now it's a high quality perfume. So it was always in my pocket. So then that makes just like, that I can sense it, I can smell it. Easy to find these cats. That I was telling with my professor when we feel. Okay, you just go in that clip and check that. And then he said, "Why, yes, do that." Then he went there. He found two scale and he was surprised. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, looking at this current, I have not mentioned the density, it's around 1.57 per 100 square kilometer. Means very good because 1 per 100 square kilometer is very good for this network at their range.
Roger?
Just real quick for the both of you, as research continues, what type of funding obstacles or optimism or otherwise exist to keep this work going and the current climate and maybe where philanthropy fits in, or how do we keep this research going?
I think it's a very good question, particularly in the landscape where I'm working. So it's not only, we are not only focusing on this knowledge, but we have so many working with local people, care of their, this, their needs, it all connects with wildlife as well as the people. So we are always struggling of getting, good for doing good science because we cannot put all our money that we have towards research. Right? Component is there. We are always struggling to get funding. So what we are trying to do is we are using now this, as I mentioned earlier, this AI technology to use in this leopard identification and as well as the wolves. And we don't know where actually throughout the countries where we have wolves, how many we have, so where they are coming, right? Trans-border movement, right? Even this genetic variability, because in one pictures I found that one of the wolves looks like Tibetan Mastiff. Maybe there's a cross-breeding problem. We have no clue. So first steps of research, actually we want good collaboration and also we will be happy to support if any students